What is ecological restoration? Restoration is the process of assisting the recovery of an ecosystem or habitat that has been degraded or destroyed by human activity. In Manatee County, the Parks and Natural Resources Department manages over 30,000 acres of preserved land. Many of these conservation properties have benefited from years of restoration efforts with the help of county staff and volunteers. We met with Mike Elswick from Manatee County Parks and Natural Resources to talk about the ongoing restoration and management of natural lands in Manatee County's preserve system, and to explore one of Manatee County's newest properties, Johnson Preserve.
Hi, I'm Mike Elswick. I'm with the Natural Resources Division in the Parks and Natural Resources Department. We do land management on the preserves throughout the county.
What is the goal of ecological restoration?
Basically always involves turning back the clock in some sense, where we're trying to return to a time where we had less human influence on the landscape. So whether it be fire exclusion or whether it be the alteration of the way water moves on the landscape, we're always trying to undo something that people have done.
What techniques do we use to restore land?
Our department, the Parks and Natural Resources Department, has a variety of capabilities in its staff and in the folks that we work with, volunteers, contractors. But we are able to bring to bear a variety of techniques, whether it be hydrological restoration, sort of replumbing how water moves across the landscape, whether it be reforestation, taking an area that's been converted to pasture and replanting trees in order to start a process of restoration, whether it be returning fire to the landscape, use of prescribed fire to restore that process and to get the best results, to get the native plants and animals responding in the way that they've evolved to. I mean, there's an ever-evolving tool set that's available to restorationists, and you could spend a lifetime learning how to use them.
What are some of the challenges of restoration?
So one of the biggest challenges with restoration that we face in the upland context, where we're trying to turn farmland or previously disturbed habitat into good quality habitat like we see here with a diverse ground cover, etc., is invasive species. We've got so many invasive plant species, so those are our biggest challenge in terms of the amount of money we have to spend and the amount of effort we have to spend to get rid of them in order to make space to give an opportunity for the native plants and animals to exist, really. So another big challenge is convincing our neighbors, our friends, our community that some of the things we need to do are necessary. So returning prescribed fire to what we have. We're here at Johnson Preserve, which is embedded in the middle of a suburban neighborhood. And so a lot of folks don't like the idea of fire all of a sudden being next door. We try to convince them, through public meetings and outreach that we do door to door, and through, social media, that the thing to do is, that this is necessary for wildfire risk mitigation, so that when we have a lightning strike, wildfire doesn't, threaten the neighborhood. So one of the biggest challenges is just the PR aspect of it, trying to tell our story and trying to convince folks why we need to do what we're doing, why the management actions we're taking are important, are necessary. A lot of times folks feel like, well, can't you just let nature be nature and let it do its thing? And the answer to that was yes, once upon a time. But now that we've chopped up the landscape and we've got a place like Johnson Preserve, which is embedded in a neighborhood, we've got all of those invasive species coming in that we have to actively intervene to remove so that we can have natives doing their thing. And then we've got we've got the risk of wildfire that we need to mitigate, so we need to come in and do prescribed burning. We need to make sure that folks aren't using the property in the wrong way. We're not getting mud bogging or other destructive recreational uses taking place out here, dumping, things like that. We can't really fence it and be hands off. It really takes an active interventionist management program to even just keep things the way they are, much less to restore them to the way they were.
What are your goals for Johnson Preserve?
This is an area that was relatively intact, relatively undisturbed for the most part. The main issue we had was a 60 to 80 year period of fire exclusion and fire suppression. So, and there are a couple of places there are some plow lines where forestry has come in and plowed around a fire to put it out. So we've suppressed fire, we've excluded it, it no longer moves across the landscape and gets here. So we know from shreds of historical evidence, basically, the testimony of early travelers, the notes of early surveyors, that the landscape was much more open and much more dominated by grasses and wildflowers than the thick shrubs that we had here when we came in. So one of the first things we had to do is implement a prescribed fire program out here and make sure that we're reintroducing fire in a way that's safe to the public, but also achieves ecological results, that gets us on that trajectory back towards creating a landscape that, would be recognizable to the Native Americans that lived here.
Why is ecological restoration important?
Well, there's a lot of motivations for doing restoration. Chief among them for us is just to restore to the greatest extent possible the ecosystem services that are provided in the habitats, by the habitats we manage, whether it's carbon sequestration, whether it's the supporting of pollinators that are also useful for agriculture or home horticulture, whether it be simply to provide a place that's beautiful, just the aesthetic values of these places. And of course things like oxygen production, everyone needs that. Everyone needs water storage and flooding prevention. Everyone needs, everyone needs a place to recreate and to get out and run and just to, all of the psychological and, medical benefits of being in nature are things that these are things that we're trying to, in some cases, just improve in the preserves.
Thank you to our staff, partners, and volunteers for your efforts to conserve and restore Manatee County's wild places. If you've enjoyed the benefits of ecological restoration in our preserves, let us know in the comments. For more videos, visit us on Facebook or YouTube at Manatee County Parks and Natural Resources.